Now before I go any further and show you how to fix any potential errors on the charges, for example, Jeff Crane has two charges here. Let's say that we posted the 99201 and it's only supposed to be one charge. Before we fix these and before actually you approve any of these, if your office has purchased the claim inspector from AdvancedMD, that's what you want to do first before you do and approve any of these charges. And you can see that up on the top is the second tab, the claim inspector. Now the reason why I say you want to come here first before you approve your charges, I hope is obvious. And the reason why is because if you have 32 charges like you see here, and of the 32 there's 14 that have errors on them, if you approve those charges that have the errors on, well, they're going to more than likely be denied either in a day from McKesson on the exclusion report or in 2 to 4 weeks when you get the EOB back saying not enough information, when you could have come here first before you approved the charge and looked at the error. Now first you'll see over on the left hand side the screen looks a lot like the charge review in that you have batch numbers and users. So where do you find your errors here? The errors will be listed on the same line item as the name. So for Josh Bracken, go over to the right and you'll see the error. When you hover over it, it pops up and gives you a little bit more detail. If you see some claims in here that don't have errors, as you can tell in this one, it may be that another biller has been in here, and when they finished fixing the errors, they've checked it and clicked on the reinspect button. Now what the reinspect button does, as we'll go over a little bit later, is that it will put an hourglass next to it and have AdvancedMD telling you that it's going and scrubbing over your claim again to make sure that you fixed it. Now this one I personally don't do because it could take a minute, maybe a couple hours, for AdvancedMD to reinspect depending upon the intensity of the errors that it has to look over that you fixed. You may have, for example, on Josh Bracken 15 or 20 errors. That may take a doing for the system to inspect that and go over it. So what I'd like to do is find the error. And again, like I said, if there's no errors here and it doesn't have a pending inspection hourglass, then what I like to do is say, well, it's fixed, and then click on the bypass button. And when I bypass it, it'll remove it from my errors, and so I go from 14 to 13. Now I want to take a look at the ones that actually have errors, and to do that I can either double click on the error here to pull up more information, or I can make sure that Josh Bracken's highlighted in blue and then click on the View Errors button and it pulls up the error screen. As you can see up at the top, it has a list of all the errors. Line items is what we call them. To find out a little bit more detail or to see the rest of the error, click on it and it'll populate the information down below. Now for this one, it says that if the city is not blank, then the line 1 of the insured's address cannot be blank. Long story short, it's saying that the city is populated, or it has a city, whatever city it is, and if it is, then you need to make sure you have a street address. Now to fix this error, I'm going to click in the error field here, and you can see it'll tell me where to go to fix that error. First to Patient Demographics, then to Insurance tab. In the Subscriber, put in the address. You can't do it right in this screen when it comes to pulling up the patient, but I want to remember this, Patient Demographics Insurance tab Subscriber. I'm going to close out. Josh Bracken is one that had that error. Down below I'll click on the patient button and it'll take me right to the insurance tab in the patient demographics for Josh Bracken. He pulls up, and if you recall, it was the subscriber on the insurance tab, and there it is, the subscriber button. Click on it. It's got the city, and it was saying, look, if the city isn't blank, then you need to make sure you have an address. So simply type in the address. To fix the error, click Save. Once it's saved, it closes out to let you know it's done. And then I can go ahead and close out of the patient. Go back to the Claim Center, which is down the lower left-hand corner. Remember, anytime that you don't close a screen but open up other screens, it'll always minimize down the lower left-hand corner. So it's Josh Bracken again. I'll double-click to pull up the error screen. And if you recall, it's the first line item, and we fixed it. We actually added in the insured's address. When I'm done, we'll check the box and click Bypass to remove that error so I no longer have to worry about it for this particular charge. And then I move on to the next error. Clicking on it. This one says the patient's address cannot be empty, and it tells me to go to the patient demographics to the address line. Go to the next error. Says the paper payer city cannot be blank, and that's found in the carrier master file. So we need to have a zip code. In AdvancedMD, if you type in the zip code and hit the tab key, it'll automatically populate your city and state fields for you. So in this case, the payer city cannot be blank. I'm going to click on the carrier button, and that will automatically pull up, as you can see here, the carrier's Blue Cross Blue Shield. It'll pull up that carrier. And you can see down below that I do have a zip code, but for some reason it didn't populate the city or the state. If it didn't, that's okay. I can click back in the field here, the zip code, and hit the tab key and see if it pulls. If it doesn't, click the ellipsis button and then double click the correct city tied to the zip code, and then that will usually do it and pull in the city and the state. Be sure to save your work, close out, and then it'll ask you to refresh the data in the charge view screen. But actually, since we're not back in the charge view screen, we'll stay right here and refresh it later. So now that I fixed it, I can click bypass. I've seen sometimes in AdvancedMD in the claim error screen here where there will be duplicate errors, basically two errors saying the same thing. If they are and you're sure they're both saying the same thing, all you have to do is fix the error and then check both of them and bypass both of them. There may be times additionally where you do have an error where you know you've done everything correctly and your claims do get accepted and approved, but that error still keeps coming up and it keeps bugging you. You can get rid of that error by simply selecting the error first and then clicking on the Claim Edit button. If the errors are more than one that tie to the same error number, just make sure you select the right one. Is it the zip must be blank or the subscriber zip must be blank? Double click on one so it populates here, and then you can ignore Edit for All, meaning that this error will never pull up again. Now you want to be sure that this error you want to ignore, because if there are times when you may make a mistake and you do have some blank zips and it goes out, you may get rejected. So make sure that you do know that this is something you want to ignore permanently. Of course, down here you do have exceptions for certain insurance carriers. In any case, this is something I hardly ever use, but nonetheless it's there. When I'm finished and I bypassed all my errors, like for example in here, and click bypass, again, this is for the patient Josh Bracken, that if I move it over, you can see his name there. The moment I click bypass, it will remove him from my claim inspector. And of course, if you want, you can always check the box here for the whole claim if you fixed all of them instead of bypassing them one by one in the claim errors, and clicking on bypassing here. And when you're done inspecting all the errors here in the claim inspector, and you have no errors left here, then is the step that you want to go to your charge review tab and approve all the charges, knowing that at least you've cleaned up all the errors that AdvancedMD can find at the moment.